Final update. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to contribute to my stepson's college fund? Original post. My wife Emily, 38 female, and I, 39 male, have been married for 12 years. Emily has a son, James, 17, from a previous relationship with Dan. Em left Dan when she caught him cheating with a co-worker. They shared 50-50 custody of James. I met Em about a year after she had left Dan. A year later, Dan married his affair partner, and Em and I got married soon after. James never really bonded with me. I admit that I tried a little too hard initially to get him to like me, but I backed off when I realized I was trying too hard, and it was having the opposite effect. Over the years, we've built a tense acceptance of sorts, if that makes sense. Em and I have 3 kids together, 10 female, 7 and 4 male. James doesn't have a good relationship with them either. He bonds well with Dan's sons, but doesn't like spending much time with our kids. He isn't mean to them, but mostly just ignores them. The eldest 2 now just avoid him when he is home. Em and I both have well-paying jobs, and early on, we decided that I would contribute 80% to our trio's college fund, and Em would do 20%, since she would contribute 100% to James's college fund. We didn't know if Dan was making any such arrangements on his end, but we thought that at least this way James would have something instead of nothing. Em recently sat him down to talk to him about his college fund. He seemed happy with the financial help he was going to get. He went off to dance for the weekend, and when he came back, he asked Em about our kids' college funds. When he learned that the amount was fairly higher than his, he was upset. When he asked about the disparity, Em told him about our college fund setup. He was furious to know that I hadn't contributed to his college fund. He said that I was just pretending to play family with him all these years, that I really didn't care about him, and that I was a heartless a-hole. Em suggested that we could take some money out of our youngest's fund and give it to James, and that she would add it back over time. But she said that it's my call, that she won't pressure me either way, and would accept whatever I decided. Quite frankly, I don't want to do it. James idolizes his awful father, even now that he knows he cheated on his mother. I could deal with his crappy behavior toward me, but I never understood his attitude toward our kids. We even tried going to family therapy, but he refused to go because I wasn't his family. Now when he needs money, suddenly I am family? I know I am perhaps being petty, but I don't want to give him the money. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. He has 2 parents to contribute to college. They can find him. Sounds like Dan had better step up. I doubt that would happen. Dan has never been good at keeping a steady income flow, and his wife is a stay-at-home mom. They aren't desperately struggling to make ends meet, but I could make an educated guess to say Dan has probably not saved up for any of his kids' college funds. Not your fault, nor your problem. James's parents had a responsibility, not the stepdad. Boundaries are important here. Not the a-hole, but why in the world did your wife tell him about your other kids' college funds? It's simply none of his business, and giving him the details was just going to upset him. He was perfectly fine with the arrangement before he knew the younger kids are getting more than him. Your wife is the a-hole for opening up a conversation about money with her 17-year-old son, and even more of the a-hole for suggesting you take money out of the other kids' funds to make James happy. I don't blame him for getting upset, but your wife needs to contribute more to his fund if she wants to make him happy. From what I understand, it started as a normal conversation. He was curious to know about the when, how, and why of the college fund, and then snowballed into him angrily ranting at his mother. In retrospect, she shouldn't have, but I don't think Em at all thought this was going to be the reaction. Edit/mini update. I think some clarifications are in order. 1. I don't hate that James idolizes his father. I hate that he blames his mother for their family breaking up. When James was 13, he heard from one of his older cousins, on Dan's side, what his father had done that led to Emily leaving. When he confronted her about it, she explained, "We tried for therapy then, but it didn't happen. I'll explain later." Last year, he told his mother that he believes she was responsible, that instead of leaving Dan, she should have forgiven him and stayed. Em was understandably shocked, but when she asked him if the situation was reversed and she had cheated on Dan and he left her, would Dan then be blamed for the family breaking up? James said no, that would definitely be her fault, and made no further explanations. This was not the result of an argument or a heat-of-the-moment statement. Ironically, this was a casual dinner table conversation, and the other kids had to be excused from the table. 2. When Em and I had gotten together and things were starting to look serious, she wanted to take James to a child therapist who could help him adjust better to the changing situation around him. Since they shared 50-50 custody, Dan's consent was needed, but he refused. When we were going to get married, we tried for therapy again. Dan said he got married before us, and James had no issues, so we were overreacting and James didn't need therapy. We tried again after the incident mentioned above, when Em was pregnant with our daughter, and most recently after last year's incident. This time we asked James directly. We thought that if he agreed to family therapy, we could speak to our lawyer and work around a custody arrangement, since he was almost an adult. This was when he refused therapy, saying I wasn't family. 3. For those saying that I am treating a teenager like an adult, that I made him feel like the other and not one of us, we tried. When we both started earning well, we wanted to splurge on our kids during birthdays and holidays. James was never excluded. Whatever our kids got, he got too. In fact, because he was older, he got to pick what he wanted. For his 11th birthday, he wanted to go to Disney World. Both of Dan's kids were invited. His youngest son and my daughter are the same age. He went, but she wasn't invited, so we stayed home. 4. We started the college funds about a year after our daughter was born. Em couldn't start one for James earlier since she was a stay-at-home mom when she was with Dan. It took her a while to get back on her feet, and she wasn't in a position to immediately start a college fund for him. A lot of you pointed out that he has been shortchanged, and you're right. Em will rectify that and make up the deficit he should get by the time he starts college. But that will still not make it as much as the remaining 3. We have decided to sit and have a chat with him this weekend about everything. Now for the first update. It's been an eye-opening weekend. Thanks to everyone who weighed in, even the aggressive ones. I knew what I was signing up for posting on Reddit. Before the update, a couple of clarifications, because gaps in info turned into wild assumptions. When I said I came on a little too strong with James when we met, some of you pictured me grabbing a toddler by the neck and hissing, "Call me daddy." No, I was nervous and acted like an idiot, using an over-the-top baby voice because I'd barely been around toddlers. Emily later said I sounded like a circus clown on 2 cartons of Red Bull. Cringe? Absolutely. Malicious? No. Many had questions regarding therapy. I shared the timeline in this comment thread, so I'm not going to rewrite that again. Many called my wife the a-hole for sharing the college fund amounts for our kids. I showed her the post. She explained that James came back from dance with questions about when the fund started, how much was in it, etc. He said, paraphrasing, "So mine is XXX and theirs is YYY, with his XXX higher than our kids' YYY. Without thinking, yes, stupidly, Emily corrected him. "No, yours is AAA and theirs is BBB." That snowballed into what I wrote earlier. It wasn't a diabolical plan to make me pay more. It was a thoughtless correction. With that out of the way, Emily, James, and I sat down for a conversation yesterday. James didn't want to talk to me, but I told him that if he expected me to even think about contributing to his college fund, then I had a lot of questions he needed to answer. It was an extremely long conversation, and many revelations came to light. So, here's a summary of the things we finally found out from James. Even before Emily and Dan had broken up, not divorced, they were never married, Dan had occasionally brought James to his affair partner's place, so James was familiar with the affair partner. After the breakup, Dan immediately moved in with his affair partner. Em, who was a stay-at-home mom until then, struggled initially to get back on her feet. Needless to say, James's home life with Em was a little more chaotic than at Dan and his affair partners. Em hadn't told James that she had left his father because he cheated on her. Telling that to a toddler wouldn't make sense. But apparently in the early days, Dan used to tell James that Em would eventually come back to him. I think he may have been holding out hope for reuniting with Em. And that's where I came in. Dan told James that as long as I was around, I would not let Em go back to Dan. When Dan married his affair partner, he told James that it was temporary, just a way to make Em jealous. When we got married, he told James that it was my way of making it even more difficult for Em to get back to their family. When James later found out from his cousin, Dan's side, that his father had cheated on his mother, he asked Em about it. She was open and honest about everything. When James confronted Dan, Dan told him that Em had left him for a long time, and his loneliness made him miss her so much that he found some comfort with the affair partner. Emily's father had been in a car accident, and she was at her parents' house for about 3 weeks to help them. And apparently, that was all the alone time Dan could handle before he cheated. But this was a reasonable enough explanation for James to absolve his father of all sins. When Em got pregnant with our daughter, Dan told James that now that I had started pumping my spawn into his mother, exact words James used, his family was destroyed forever. Dan told James that the therapy we wanted him to go to was actually a ruse, that we were going to take him to a doctor who would declare him a problem child, and then ship him off to boarding school so we could play happy family without him. Only Dan and his family, according to him, were fighting to keep James with them. James admitted that he had hoped his detached behavior around my family and his happy, joyous behavior around Dan's family would convince Em that my kids and I were evil and she would eventually leave us. But sadly, his words, I kept knocking up his mom, making it harder for her to leave. Expectedly, Emily was beyond distraught to hear everything. To be honest, in the moment, I couldn't wrap my head around it much either. I asked if Dan had a college fund saved up for him and his sons. James said affair partner's parents have set up a trust fund for Dan's sons, but that does not include James since he isn't their grandson. Dan hasn't saved anything for any of his kids. I asked James why he suddenly thinks I should contribute to his fund when he has turned down every opportunity for us to be a family. He said he was actually okay with the amount that Em initially told him about, but Dan made him realize that we were undercutting him, so he came back to demand more. I asked him, if I pay the money, will that make us family? Even if he can't accept me as a step-parent, can we at least be friends? Could he be a little friendlier with my kids when he is around? He straight up said no. He said that after all these years, he knows neither I nor my kids are the evil beings his father made us out to be. But he still feels I am the reason his parents could never get back together, and for that, he will always hate me. And since my kids are my kids, he's never going to like them either. Now that he knows Emily isn't going to leave her family, James said his plan is to cut off contact with all of us once he goes to college. He does plan to eventually get back in touch with his mother when he feels ready to forgive her for breaking up his family, but he can't do that right now. Emily and I have had a long and honest discussion. I have decided that I will not be making any contributions to James's college fund. Emily will continue the contributions she was already making and hand it over to him once he turns 18. We will no longer be pursuing family therapy with James. We will not try to change James's mind about going no contact with us after he goes off to college. We've done all we could. We're going to stop now. If James is happy with Dan's family, then we're happy for him. It's going to be hard for Emily, but even she has accepted that after James' recent revelations, she's having a hard time reconciling her little boy with this cynical teenager. We have both taken individual and couples therapy before, mainly due to the stress and anxiety James's behavior used to put on us as a family. We are looking into starting again. Hopefully, we'll be able to overcome this in time. Man, this is so sad and infuriating. I don't envy you. Dan is a piece of turd. I'm sorry James can't see the light, and I hope in the future he's able to grow and see who has actually loved him. James is piece of turd too. Sorry, but he wants graciously forgive his mom for breaking family when it was his own father who was knocking a coworker. There is trauma and there is trait being a C-word, and James is one. What a twisted little turd. Yes, his dad has manipulated him, but he consciously recognizes everything that's gone on and still behaves this way? Sorry you and Emily have to deal with the ungrateful turd. His dad has villainized them both in his eyes, to a point even the truth is not enough. He's 17, not 5. He acknowledged they're not the people his dad has painted them as, but he doesn't care. Second update. I've been getting so many messages and comments that I haven't been able to reply to them all. Emily and I are deeply grateful for all the kind words we have received, and even the unkind ones have been insightful in their own way. A lot of you asked how we did not know that Dan was brainwashing James against us. It's not that we didn't know. We knew that some level of parental alienation was happening, hence why we repeatedly advocated for therapy, but we didn't know to what extent. Like I said in a comment before, whenever we tried to talk to James, he would either throw a tantrum or simply sit like a stone and not say a word. Since therapy was denied repeatedly, we really couldn't do much. The fact that Dan had filled James's head with this kind of BS, we really didn't know. Last year, when James spewed his judgment on how Em was to blame for their family breaking up, was when we had our first inclination of how much James had been poisoned against us. As for suing Dan for parental alienation, at this point, it doesn't matter. James will turn 18 early next year, and we have no proof of anything. We did not record the conversation we had with him, and James is not a reliable witness. He would easily lie to protect his father. Now, coming to the recent developments. After everything that James said, Emily was very shocked and devastated. For all those who said she should have told James that Dan was the problem, not us, and so many other things, the reality was that she said nothing because she couldn't. Real life isn't like some scene from a movie or series where characters have replies ready at the tip of their tongue. When your son spews this level of hate towards you, it's hard to comprehend and respond with zingers. That said, we have had time to think things over, and we have considered a lot of the advice that we got from here. Emily has decided that while she will continue to add to James's fund until he turns 18, she will not be handing over the money to him. As per the advice given by many, she will be paying directly to the institution that James gets admission into. If he chooses not to go to college, then the money will be held back and given to him when he turns 25. In the hopefully very unlikely case of Emily passing before James turns 25, then our lawyer will be in charge of ensuring that James gets the money at the allotted time. This is to ensure that neither James nor Dan can blame me for meddling with the money. Since our last conversation, James has not come home. He stayed at a friend's place for a few days, then went back to his father's place. Emily asked him to come over on Saturday. She sat him down and told him that since he is hell-bent on giving up his relationship with us, there was no point walking on eggshells around him any longer. She told him that she was hurt and disappointed by his behavior. For him to believe that his mother was to be blamed for their family breaking up was unacceptable. Em said that if he feels his father cheating is acceptable and that she should have gone back to him, then she cannot see eye to eye with him. This is not word for word of the conversation. I am mostly paraphrasing. She told him that I will not be making any contributions to his fund. Since he doesn't think of me as family, I have no obligations to add to his funds. And if he still feels that his fund is lacking, then he should ask Dan to make up for the deficit. She also told him that he will not be getting direct access to his funds and that payments from the fund will be made directly to whatever college he attends. He was also made aware of what happens if he doesn't go to college. Emily also let him know that from now on, if he wishes not to come over to our place, he doesn't have to. We discussed it with our lawyer. While Emily will not be giving up custody yet, she will not be enforcing that James stay with her as per the custody arrangements. He silently listened to everything Em said. He didn't leave his room that night and went back to Dan's place on Sunday. We haven't heard anything from him since then. I'm sure dear old dad is going to flip out when he realizes he's not getting the funds. Until the kid is 25, why would they tell him they are giving him the money then? Why would they even give it to him? It should either go directly to the college or nothing. Because people do a lot of growing up between 18 and 25, and there are valid choices besides college. I don't have high hopes for the kid, but I understand as a parent wanting to leave the door open. This isn't the end. Keep strong. I am sorry that your stepson is a jerk and that Dan is a toxic POS. I'm waiting for Dan to start screaming at Emily about the fact that his son isn't getting the money the moment James turns 18. Dan was absolutely waiting for that money, and he's going to be furious when he finds out that Emily's doing the smart thing. And James eats it up like his dad can do no wrong. I really hope that reality smacks him in the face hard. Now for the final update. I still keep getting messages for an update, so here it is. But this is the last one. For about 2 weeks after Emily's last conversation with James, when he was told that I would not be making any contribution to his fund and that Emily would be paying directly to any college, university, or trade school that James decided to go to but not hand the money to him, and that if he chose not to attend college, he would still get the money, but only after he turns 25. There was complete radio silence from him. He stayed with Dan, and Emily did not insist that he come over to our place as per the custody arrangement. Then suddenly, James called Em, saying that he had gotten admission into a college and needed his entire college fund to book his admission. It's been a while since Em and I graduated, but we know enough to know that's not how it works. The application process starts around this time of year, and deadlines are usually until February or March. No college asks for full payment up front. At most, a small deposit is required to hold a spot after an official acceptance letter is issued. Em said she would be more than happy to hand over the entire fund, but not to him. She would make the payment to the college directly. James said the college had no such option. At this point, the conversation was so comically ridiculous, I don't even know what to say. It's like he thought we were brainless idiots. He wouldn't tell us the name of this not at all imaginary college. He wouldn't show us the acceptance letter he supposedly received. He just wanted us to hand over the money. When Emily refused, he started to get agitated and raised his voice, so Em disconnected the call. Not even an hour later, Dan called. This was surprising for us. In the past 12 years, it was always us who would reach out to Dan. Mostly Emily, but on rare occasions, I have too, usually begging him to consent to therapy, which he consistently denied. Dan accused us of emotionally abusing James and causing him mental distress. He claimed that by denying James access to his college fund, we were sabotaging his future and causing him emotional harm. Emily calmly explained that the money in question is her personal savings, intended for James, yes, but not legally or morally owed to him. It could just as easily serve as her retirement fund. There's absolutely no legal basis to claim that money belongs to James. Things got nasty after that, and Dan called Em and me names, so obviously Em hung up. On a positive note, because we were so surprised that Dan had called, we recorded the call. Things went back to radio silence again, until this Monday. Dan's cousin Julie, mother of the boy who had told James that it was his dad who had cheated on Em, has always been on good terms with Em. She's a really sweet lady. Her twins and my daughter are great friends. She believes Dan is a POS, and James is the only reason she barely maintains a civil relationship with him. She came by and informed us that Dan's wife, the affair partner, is divorcing him. Apparently he cheated on her too. What a surprise. She separated from him months ago and is living with her parents with her sons. Meanwhile, Dan's parents have been asking family members to lend him money for a new business, but unsurprisingly, no one has pitched in. We now believe his sudden demand for James's college fund may have been tied to that. Emily has tried calling and texting James since then, but he hasn't answered or responded. While our situation isn't resolved yet, this will be my final update. Emily and I are deeply grateful for all the genuine support, empathy, and thoughtful advice we've received. Unfortunately, there have also been some vile and malicious comments and DMs from people hiding behind anonymity to say the worst things possible about me and Emily, and they continue to do this even though I have ignored them and not risen to debate. We don't need that kind of negative energy in our lives right now. Whatever happens next, we'll face it privately, together, as a family. Thank you again to everyone who's been kind and truly helpful. I would not be giving that kid any money at all after this fiasco. Wonder if he blames the affair partner for his dad cheating on her like he does Emily. James and Dan are two peas in a pod. They deserve each other, and you and Emily should just enjoy your life without the two of them darkening your doorstep. I'm wondering what the timing is between James finding out his dad cheated on his mom and James finding out his dad cheated on his stepmom. Shrugs. If I remember correctly, James knew for a while that Dan cheated. Hell, Dan was bringing James to meet his soon-to-be ex during the cheating. But James is a narcissistic POS just like his dad, and everything is mom's fault. Wouldn't put it past him to blame the soon-to-be ex for his dad cheating. I know you're taking things offline, but just wanted to add something. I work at a university, and no, colleges don't require 4-year payments up front. And not even 1-year payments up front. Most recommend doing the FAFSA now for 26 to 27, and payment plans start usually in July for the fall term. If paying in full for what financial aid doesn't cover, usually the due dates are 1 to 2 weeks before school starts. Sometimes 1 month prior. Depends on the college. But again, that's for 1 term and you still have to register for classes. Most admit fees are also waivable if you call and sweet talk someone in admissions. Good luck with everything. This is really helpful. Thank you. Although I don't think, considering the present circumstances, that James will be going to college or trade school. But nevertheless, it's good to have this information handy. Last story. Am I the a-hole if I keep seeing my nephew after my brother found out he's not biologically his? My 23 female brother, 30 male, is going through a very nasty divorce at the moment with my sister-in-law, 30 female. They'd been together since they were 18 and had my nephew at 19. He's 11 now. My brother and sister-in-law started fighting, and it basically turns out my brother did a DNA test on my nephew, and he isn't his. I have no clue who the father is, and I'm not sure if my brother or sister-in-law do. They are divorcing, but my brother is trying to get out of all his responsibilities and doing everything he can to avoid paying support, the latter of which I understand, but the fact that he's so quick, after 11 years of raising and loving that boy, to just throw him away like an unwanted dog, really makes my blood boil. You don't raise a kid for 11 years and not care enough to stick around, and the fact that he isn't tells me he's not cut out to be a father. I would 100% side with my brother if my nephew were an infant or even a toddler. But he's not. He's 11, and all he's going to see is his dad completely disappearing on him. What makes it worse is that our dad left when I was 2, and it crushed my brother, according to our mother. And the fact that he's willing to do the same really upsets me. My nephew is blameless in this. Please don't mistake this for me justifying what my sister-in-law did. I couldn't wish the worst for her any more than I already do. What she did and has done for the past decade is despicable and inexcusable, but I don't think this makes my brother a blameless victim, as he's willing to straight up abandon his son because no matter what the test said, after all this time, he is his son and he is his dad. I have been in contact with my sister-in-law, as has my mother. She knows what we think of her, but she's being very fair given the circumstances. I love that boy so much, and she's agreed to let me and my mom continue a relationship with him. This set my brother off, saying we were siding with her after what she did to him, which he knows we're not. And I get he's hurt, upset, and grieving, but that doesn't mean my nephew should have his life turned upside down. Still, he's adamant that my mother and I are wrong and that we should back him 100%. Am I the a-hole? That child is the ultimate victim in this scenario. He will need all the love and support he can get. Stand by him. You're a decent human. I couldn't agree more. Every case of paternity fraud has 3 victims, and the child is the biggest victim in every case. No a-holes here except the sister-in-law. Your brother is also a victim here. I feel bad for the guy. Precisely. I wish people wouldn't vilify him for having the emotional self-awareness to realize he couldn't raise his ex's affair child. The only a-hole here is the ex for lying about her affair and her baby's parentage, and baby-trapping him. From what I've seen on Reddit, people have next to no sympathy for men who have been lied to for years about the paternity of their child. Apparently, they need to get over it and just look after the kid, whether it's theirs or not. As a woman, I'm never going to know what that feels like. Since obviously I gave birth to my children, I know they're mine. I cannot even imagine what it's like to be told your child isn't yours. Men aren't allowed to have feelings, despite people doing the whole men need to talk thing. A lot of people can't seem to understand that it's incredibly painful and a constant reminder for some by keeping contact. I've heard stories where some men do this, but they do come back. I reckon they just need to sort themselves out. I do agree that love just doesn't disappear. I'm sure underneath the anger, the brother just wants his boy back. It's unfair to judge him when it's not his fault he was put into this situation. Most of us don't know how we would react to this. The poor kid is definitely the worst victim in this. I think I'd grow up hating my mother forever if this were me. I get OP, but I sort of get where the brother is coming from too. I'd say no a-holes here except the horrible sister-in-law.